Hi students, I hope all of you are at good health. So today we will be having a recapitulation on the endocrine system, and over here today we will be learning about the exercise question answer through detailed study. The first question given in your book is name the following. Now the first question is ductless gland which release their secretion into the bloodstream. Now, ductless gland, as I have already mentioned you in my last few videos, that there are two types of gland in our body. One is the endocrine gland, another is the exocrine gland. Now, endocrine glands are the glands which pour their secretion directly into the bloodstream. Means they don't possess any duct. An exocrine gland are the gland that pour their secretion by means of a duct towards the target organ or cell. So over here the answer is endocrine gland. That means endocrine gland are the gland which release their secretion into the bloodstream. Next is the master gland of the body. And which gland is known as the master gland? It is the pituitary. Now, pituitary produces their own hormone, which is known as the tropic hormone. Now, tropic hormone, it influences other endocrine glands of the body to either increase their secretion of hormone whenever required to produce a appropriate biological response. Similarly, it can also instruct a particular endocrine gland to reduce their secretion whenever the secretion of a particular hormone or level of a particular hormone is increased beyond the normal level, and it may produce an adverse reaction. Now this way, pituitary influences other endocrine glands either to increase their secretion or to decrease their secretion. And therefore, pituitary is known as the master gland. Next is gland that is known as the emergency hormone or emergency gland. Now, what are the emergency conditions that a particular person feels? Either a condition when a person becomes very angry, needs to fight, needs to howl, needs to growl towards a particular person, or a condition when a person encounters a mad dog or tiger or rather a snake. That time the body tries to escape from that situation, and the condition during which our body faces, the condition when our body faces this situation is known as the emergency condition. That is why adrenal gland, since it produces the hormone adrenaline to prepare our body for an emergency condition, therefore adrenal gland is known as the emergency gland in our body. Next is the disease caused due to dietary deficiency of iodine. Now, as I have already mentioned you that iodine is one of the essential component which is required for proper formation of the hormone thyroxine. That is why the disease caused due to dietary deficiency of iodine is goiter, that is simple goiter. And during the simple goiter, there is a swelling that appears in front of the neck, and that causes a person to suffer from mental retardation, and even the child suffer from dwarfism also. Okay, next is a gland having dual function, like pancreas. It produces the hormone insulin and glucagon directly into the bloodstream that affect the metabolism of carbohydrate in our body. Similarly, with the help of a duct, it pours its secretion, that is pancreatic juice, into the duodenum portion so that it can help in digestion by means of various digesting enzymes. So this was the explanation for the name the following, so given in your book exercise. Next is short answer questions. Like, what are hormone? As I have already explained you that hormone are chemical messengers which regulate most of the metabolic and other activities inside our body and are secreted from endocrine gland and is directly poured into the bloodstream. Now, chemical messenger. Why they are known as chemical messenger? Because they carry a particular message or biological message from one part of the body to another. For example, if there is a lower level of blood glucose, it acts as a stimuli for the pancreas gland. Now, pancreas gland start producing the hormone glucagon. Now, whenever there is a lower level of blood glucose level, glucagon stimulate the conversion of glucose from glycogen in the liver. Again, whenever there is a increased blood sugar level, that time again the stimuli reaches to the pancreas to produce their own hormone insulin, which again acts as a chemical messenger over here, and it produces the effect to reduce the blood glucose level. And how it does it? Does that by either promoting the uptake of glucose by the tissue or cell, or by helping in conversion of glucose to glycogen in the liver. Next is, what is the role of hormone in the body? Now, as I said that they are acting as chemical messenger. How they are acting as chemical messenger? By carrying message. Now, this message in our body is transmitted in the form of nerve impulse. Okay? And this nerve impulse is again carry forwarded from one part of the body to another by means of our neuron or the nerve cell. That means hormone is a messenger that is acting between organ and the nervous system. That means the stimuli will be carried from one portion of the body to one organ by means of the nerve. Again, on getting a particular stimulus, it will again regulate the activity of that particular organ by means of the nerve impulse so propagated by the neuron or the nerve cell. Thus, hormone acts as a messenger between the organs and the nervous system. It stimulates growth, even it affects the basal metabolism and so on. This way, that means over here I have given an example that it is stimulating growth, it helps in regulating the basal metabolic activity. Now, how it is working? By acting as a messenger between the organs and the nervous system. Next is, what is the full form of BMR? And the full form of BMR is basal metabolic rate. Now, what is basal metabolic rate? It is the rate at which body uses energy while at rest to maintain vital functions such as breathing and keeping warm. That means this is the process of formation of adenosine triphosphate, that is energy, biological energy, and how this energy is utilized by our body while at rest. That means while we are sleeping. This is known as the basal metabolic rate. Next is write the difference between endocrine and the exocrine gland. As I have already mentioned that endocrine glands are the ductless gland that secrete their substances onto an epithelial surface. Now, as endocrine gland do not possess any duct, so it directly pours its substances on the epithelial surface, and from that surface, the secretion directly reaches into the bloodstream. But in case of exocrine gland, since it consists of a specific duct, therefore it secretes their substances by means of duct, and the secretion reaches the target organ by this duct only. Some other differences are that since endocrine gland is using blood as a transporting medium, so it can transport the secretion from one part of the body to a far distant part of the body. Okay? And it can affect the biological metabolism. While since exocrine gland depends on a particular duct to pour its secretion, therefore the target organs are generally located near the secretory gland. Example of endocrine glands in our body is pituitary, then adrenal, and so on. An exocrine gland is sweat gland, sebaceous gland, and so on. Next is, what is the effect of growth hormone imbalance produced in the human body? Let us see. As I have already said you that now the effect of growth hormone imbalance produced in the body are gigantism, dwarfism, and acromegaly. Now, as we have seen that during gigantism, the hormone produced in our body, that is growth hormone, is produced in excessive amount during the growing years. And as a result, the length of the leg, the length of the hand, even the entire length of the body increases beyond the normal level that generally occurs in a child at adolescence period. Next disorder that occurs due to imbalance of growth hormone is dwarfism. Now during dwarfism, what happens? Due to lower secretion of growth hormone in the body, the length of leg and hand reduces below the normal level. Okay? And as a result, the person appears to be smaller in size than the normal. Acromegaly. This occurs due to excessive production of growth hormone during the adulthood. And what happens during this period? Generally, the bones of face increases, and as a result, the facial bone appears to be square. Even the nose becomes protruding. Okay? Next is, what are the functions of thyroxine? As I have already told you students that thyroxine is a hormone which is produced by the thyroid gland. Now, thyroxine generally affect all tissue by causing certain chemical reactions. How? As I have already said you that chemical reactions like basal metabolic rate or basal metabolism, that is production of energy in the form of adenosine triphosphate during rest. This is affected by thyroxine. Now, if thyroxine production increases, this BMR will increase beyond a particular level, and even the person may feel very warm at times when the weather is not at all warm. The person unnecessarily sweats than normal. Similarly, when thyroxine hormone is lower in level, it reduces the chemical reactions in the body, and as a result, the ATP production also decreases, followed by a feeling of cold, followed by a feeling of sluggishness, then becoming lazy. Thyroxine also influences the physical growth and mental development of a person. Physical growth, like the growth of the entire body by affecting the ossification of bone. Ossification of bone means the division of the bone cells to enable growth. And mental development, like thinking, reasoning, creativity, and so on, is affected by the hormone thyroxine. Next is, we are going into the long answer question. The first question is, write different endocrine gland in our body and state their location and function. Now you see, I have already mentioned in this table which is shown over here, this one, that there are different endocrine glands in our body. Like, first one is pituitary. Now, what is the location of pituitary? It is located at the base of forebrain. It is located at the base of forebrain. It's a tiny cone-shaped structure which regulate the other endocrine glands of our body by affecting their activities. And as a result, pituitary is known as the master gland. Next is pineal gland. Now, what is pineal gland? It's a tiny gland which is again located within the brain. And what is the function of this pineal gland? It controls the biological rhythm of the body. Now, what is the biological rhythm of the body? Like, it affects the sleeping pattern. When we will sleep, when we will wake up, then if it affects the timing of puberty, the timing of adolescence, then even it affects the timing of arousal, the timing of many more biological activities in the body. Therefore, sometimes pineal gland is also known as the biological clock, as I have already mentioned you about this in our last Google Meet session. Next is the thyroid gland. Now, thyroid gland is located in front of trachea. Okay, it's a butterfly-shaped organ which is located in front of trachea. And what it does? It mainly controls the rate of chemical reactions in the body, which I have already mentioned. It regulates the rate of chemical reactions in the body. That is, it affects whether the ATP production will be increased or decreased in the body. Next is parathyroid gland. Parathyroid gland, it is embedded in the thyroid. And what it does? It simply regulates the calcium and phosphorus metabolism in the body. Like whether the calcium will be deposited in the bone cells, or from the bone cells calcium will be withdrawn into the bloodstream for performing or regulating other metabolic activity of the body. Now this parathyroid gland regulates the calcium phosphorus metabolism in the body. Next is thymus. Thymus is located behind the breastbone and it helps in setting up the immune system. Now, as I have already mentioned you that thymus gland acts as the site where the lymphocytes get mature. And all of you know that lymphocytes are the cells which helps in producing the antibodies in our body. And since thymus gland is the portion where immune cells, that is lymphocytes, mature, therefore it's help in setting up the immune system. Next is adrenal gland. It is located at the top of each kidney and it mainly maintains the salt balance of our body. And apart from this, it also acts as the emergency gland of our body. Next is pancreas. It is located below the stomach and it helps in affecting the carbohydrate metabolism in the body. As I have said that the hormone insulin and glucagon mainly helps in deposition of excess glucose into glycogen that reduces the blood sugar level on one hand, and on the other hand it helps in conversion of excess glycogen to glucose, that is raising the blood sugar level whenever required. This way it affects the carbohydrate metabolism. Next is what are hormone and what are the different characteristics of hormone. Now students, as I have already explained you what are hormones, so I will simply move on to the characteristics of hormone. Next is the characteristics of hormone. As I have already discussed with you that what are hormones, so I am simply beginning with the characteristics of hormone. First of all, hormones are chemical messenger, which I have already mentioned you that since it regulates all the metabolic activity of the body by carrying message from one part of the body to the other, therefore hormones are the chemical messenger. Next is hormone are secreted in small amount. That means a little amount of hormone produces a massive effect. Like during your adolescence period, when you just enter from the childhood to the adolescence period, you will see there is a sudden spurt in the growth of your body. That means you grow suddenly. Your length of the body, that is mainly the limbs, increases rapidly. Now, why this happens? This happens due to a little bit drop of, rather one drop or few drops of growth hormone, which is produced and is secreted in the bloodstream that affects the entire ossification of the body. And hence, it affects the entire body with its small amount. Next is hormone are poured directly into the bloodstream. How? By simply pouring their secretion on the epithelial surface. From there, blood carries this hormone from one part of the body to the other by means of artery, vein, and capillaries. Next is hormone are proteinaceous or steroid in nature. Now, proteinaceous, that is water soluble and are made up of uh, amino acid molecules altogether, or simply hormones are made up of fatty acid and glycerol that are carried to one part of the body to the other. These are the different characteristics of the hormone. Next is explain how that pancreas in the human body is having dual function. Now students, as I have already mentioned you that pancreas as an exocrine gland secrete pancreatic juice by means of the hepatopancreatic duct into the duodenum that help in digestion. Now, this pancreatic juice consists of many enzymes like pancreatic amylase, lipase, trypsin that mainly helps in digestion of carbohydrate, fat, protein, respectively. That means it is mainly affecting digestion. Similarly, on the other hand, pancreas as an endocrine gland secrete their hormone insulin and glucagon directly into the bloodstream that affect the metabolism of carbohydrate. And how it is done? Simply by secreting hormone insulin and glucagon directly into the bloodstream. Now, as I have already mentioned that insulin reduces the blood sugar level by either promoting the cells or tissues to uptake their own glucose, excess glucose from the blood to utilize it, or by enabling the conversion of glucose to glycogen in the liver and thus reducing the blood sugar level. And on the other hand, glucagon, it increases blood sugar level by conversion of glycogen to glucose in the blood so that body cells can utilize it accordingly. Now, this way, endocrine gland also affect the metabolism of carbohydrate. That means once it is acting or playing role as an exocrine gland, similarly it is also playing a role as an endocrine gland, and therefore pancreas is known to perform dual function. Next is name the sex hormone in human body and changes caused due to this hormone. Now, the sex hormones secreted by human body are testosterone, that is in case of male, and it is mainly produced by the testes, and estrogen, which is mainly produced by the female and is produced by their ovary. Now, what are the changes which is associated with the secretion of this hormone in male and female body? Now, mainly the primary function of uh, this hormone is to affect or influence the production of ova. Ova means the female gamete through the ovary in case of female. Now, this generally occurs at puberty when females start producing unfertilized ova so that it can get fertilized and produce a new zygote. And in case of male, it helps testes to produce sperm, that is the male gamete, so that it can fertilize ova and produce a zygote. That means in case of female, it helps in production of female gamete in the form of ova and male gamete in the form of sperm. This is the primary function of the male and female sex hormones. And the secondary function of this hormone is to influence the secondary sexual characteristics in male and female during puberty. Now, what is this secondary sexual characteristics? It means production or just growing of beard and mustaches in case of male. Even you will all see that the voice of male are changing, that is it is becoming bash, that is it is deepening, while in case of female the hips widens wide so that in future the females can carry their fetus within that pelvic girdle. Pelvic girdle means the ring of that hip which is produced by the bones over there. And also it helps in enlargement of the breast, that is development of the mammary gland, so that in future it can produce milk for nourishment of the fetus. This way the sex hormones in male and female is working. Next is write a short note on pituitary, why it is known as the master gland. Now, pituitary is known as the master gland. Why? Because it controls and regulates the activity of other endocrine glands in our body by production of their own hormone, which I have already mentioned is known as the tropic hormone, so that it can produce an appropriate biological response. Hence, pituitary is known as the master gland. Okay. Next, we will practice with the fill in the blanks question, that is deficiency of dash causes diabetes. Now students, I have already mentioned that diabetes mellitus is always caused due to under secretion of insulin in the body, and as a result of which the excess glucose cannot be uptaken or utilized by the cells of the body, and thus what happens, the blood sugar level rises and the body tries to release that excess glucose by means of excretory products like urine. That is why urine is always loaded with this excess sugar or glucose, and this disorder is known as diabetes mellitus. So deficiency of insulin cause diabetes. Next is dash is called the stress hormone. Stress hormone means, students, means hormone that affect the fight or flight condition in the body, and this condition is means brought about, rather the body is prepared for such emergency situation or stress condition like fight or flight by means of the hormone adrenaline. So therefore adrenaline is called the stress hormone, and I said you that how body is prepared for such function, that is either the heartbeat increases or breathing increases so that a rich supply of oxygen along with glucose can reach the respective muscles, so that the muscle can vigorously contract and the body can get ready either to fight or to run away. Next is testes secrete dash in male, means which hormone is produced by testes in male. It is the testosterone. Testosterone is secreted by testes in male. Next is dash regulate the calcium and phosphorus in the body. And I have already mentioned that it is the parathyroid gland which affect the metabolism of calcium and phosphorus in the body. And which gland is known as the master gland in the body? It is the pituitary. Since pituitary regulates the activity of other endocrine glands in the body, so pituitary is known as the master gland. Next is true and false. Means either you have to write true or false. And also you need to correct the incorrect statement. Now the first question is thyroxine hormone cause cretinism in early growing age. Now the answer is true. That is, as I have already told you, that thyroxine causes cretinism, that is either mental retardation or inhibition of the physical growth of the child. This condition is known as cretinism. Next is pancreas releases emergency hormone. It is absolutely wrong, so we need to write false. And what is the correct statement? Correct statement is adrenal releases hormone. Adrenal releases the emergency hormone. That is, it prepares the body for fight as well as flight condition. Next is parathyroid regulate calcium and phosphorus balance in the body, and this is true. Next is glucagon lowers blood sugar level in the body, and the answer is false. Glucagon never lowers the blood glucose level, rather it increases the blood glucose level or blood sugar level. Why? Because it initiates or helps or stimulates the conversion of glycogen to glucose in the liver. That means the correct statement will be insulin. Insulin lowers blood sugar level, and how it does that? I have already mentioned that it simply helps in conversion of excess glucose to glycogen in the liver, or simply helps the cell to uptake this excess glucose so that it can utilize it. So the answer is false. Next is give one word answer. First is flight and fight hormone. And which hormone is known as the fight or flight hormone? It is the adrenaline. I said that it helps in increasing the heartbeat, helps in breathing, helps in conversion of glycogen to glucose in the liver so that the blood can transport excess glucose and oxygen at a faster rate to the muscles so that muscles can utilize it, then form adenosine triphosphate ATP so that it can utilize those parts for vigorous or rapid contraction. And as a result, adrenaline is known as the flight and fight hormone. Next is chemical messenger of the body. Now, hormone, it is known as the chemical messenger of the body. And why it is known as the chemical messenger of the body? Because it integrates the coordination between the nervous system and the gland. And since it carries information from one part of the body to another and work accordingly or regulate the activity accordingly, therefore, hormone is known as the chemical messenger. Next is glands with duct. Glands with duct, it is the exocrine gland, okay? And glands without duct, it is the endocrine gland. And hormone that lowers glucose in the blood, what I just told you just now, it is the insulin. And the hormone which raises the level of glucose in the blood, it is glucagon. So I hope students, all of you have understood today's lesson. All of you go through the video lesson properly. All your answers from the exercise question answer from the book is given over here. Each and every answer is explained properly. Go through it, and if you have any doubt, any queries, you just clarify it with me in our next video lesson, in our next Google Meet class. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.